Do you ever feel like a pressure cooker with no release valve? There's like so much built up inside of you and you just kind of feel this urgency, but you don't even know what to do with it, or you don't really even know what it is. This could be a sign that you aren't as in touch with your emotions as you could be. I had the same feeling. For myself, this is a feeling I have been living with for most of my adult life, and I've only recently kind of come to discover what it was. I had all this stuff just kind of crammed inside me. It turns out they were emotions. But because I couldn't identify them properly, and I certainly couldn't work through them, they just kind of built up and caused this like variety of negative impacts. Some of the impacts were explosive anger, anxiety, and just like a general feeling of pressure. Like, oh, I just remember like pressure. I'm under pressure. I used to say that all the time. After working through emotions for a while, for about probably a good solid 6 months, I was able to start dissolving that pressure cooker feeling by sorting the emotions out and pulling out one emotion at a time and handling one problem at a time. I wanted to build a bit on the topic from last week, and that was emotions and why it's so important to learn to properly identify your emotions. And one of the tools that I mentioned was an emotion wheel or feelings wheel. And that has been my absolute favorite tool over the last year to help me navigate the healing and learning journey that I have been on. And I feel like I need to shout out Richard Grannon here on YouTube. So if you don't know anything about him, you can go check him out. He talks a lot about feelings wheels. And I feel like that's probably where I originally got the idea to do it. So as always, the goal of this channel is to create a healing and learning community. So in no way are these videos meant to replace any sort of professional help or to be like a teacher in the technical sense, but more to teach through trial and error, teach from experience, to teach from the community kind of coming together and offering input in the comment section. So we're creating a space here to learn and to grow and to share information, and that's like my vision, is just like a space for everybody to be a part of. I wanted to go through a couple of emotions wheels and share my experience and thoughts about using them, and hopefully encourage you to print one out and or screenshot one for your own personal use. It will change your life, I promise. There are a whole bunch of different types, and I think that it's kind of unnecessary and boring to go over them all or to get too deep in the history or how you're supposed to use them. So I'm going to skip the majority of that kind of lesson and talk about the ones that I kind of have personal experience with. My favorite one is probably from Gregory Roberts, and unfortunately I don't feel safe showing it because he grants permission for nonprofit use, but this video is like right now it's nonprofit, but one day it may be monetized, so you know, I don't want to take that risk. So you can kind of print it out for yourself or you can look it up, but it's really similar to this one that I am going to show you from Dr. Albert Wong. Now, I got to give some credits here. Dr. Albert Wong has made some revisions upon the adaptation of Mark, I believe it's Bostick's adaptation of Jeffrey Roberts' Wheel, and he grants permission for use. So we're going to look at his version. It's very similar to Jeffrey Roberts. I really like this layout, and I love that there are 130 emotions on this wheel. I mean, it is such a great use of space. Like the design, the artist in me just like loves it. I think it was very genius, very simple, but yet just genius. The design was originated from Gloria Wilcox. That's the last shout out, but she definitely deserved it. It's pretty self-explanatory how to use. The emotions are divided into categories, and the more broad emotions are toward the center. And as you go outwards from the center of the circle, you are able to have a more precise word to describe what you're experiencing. I personally like to normally start on the outside of the circle because I feel like those are the really precise words. And when I'm reading those words, I tend to when I read the right one, I feel like this little ping inside me. I just know it's the right one. I don't know if everybody's different. I don't know if other people will have that sort of recognition, but for me, that's how it works. For example, as I'm working on the notes for this video, so I wanted to check my will just to see where I was at. And I pinged on sleepy and rushed, which led to tired and busy, which ultimately led to bad. But I would never have picked bad to begin with. So I think that's why I like to start on the outside, because it just kind of makes it a little more precise. Because I didn't necessarily feel bad. So I don't know that I necessarily agree that feeling tired and busy need to be in the bad category, but that's where that's where they were. And they have to be somewhere. So I guess most of us don't prefer to be tired and busy, so it kind of makes sense, but yet still, like I never would have said I feel bad right now. Also, another hang up for me is like I hesitate to label anything as bad. So because something I've really had to work on through this journey for me is that emotions aren't bad or good. They're just emotions. Some are more fun to experience than others, but we really shouldn't bother ourselves saying something like anger is bad, joy is good. It kind of takes away the neutrality of the emotion's ability to communicate with you. So if you label anger as bad and then you try to knock it down every time you see it, you will be basically shooting the messenger before it was able to deliver the message. So the wheel isn't a time to judge yourself. Looking at the wheel, it's not a time to judge your emotions, but just to learn to listen to them and let them work for you in as non-judgmental way as possible. So I want to take a minute, and you can pause the video if you like, and I would like for you to look at the wheel and describe how you're feeling right now. I usually try to pick 3 emotions. I feel like there's kind of a complexity between emotions, and they do tend to overlap. So normally I can come up with at least 2, maybe 3. And then I like to kind of lead or pick a dominant emotion. I feel like normally one emotion kind of rules over the others, or I'm just feeling it more strongly than the others. But it's nice to have, like, you know, I could be feeling tired with a, a pinch of busy and a pinch of aggravation, something like that. I don't know. Another wheel that I tried was the wheel from Robert Plutchik. I honestly did not care for this one as a practical everyday tool. I found that it does contain an interesting lesson, though, about how emotions can combine to form other emotions. I do think, so because of that, I do think it's worth looking at on occasion, kind of familiarizing yourself with, but for me, I had a really hard time resonating with any of the emotions when I was in the midst of like a deeply feeling state, because they just weren't as nuanced. They weren't nuanced enough to be useful to me. For example, serenity, joy, ecstasy. The 3 words in the Plutchik model. This compares to 28 words for happiness in the other 2 models that I referenced. So the options in the other model would be happy, playful, aroused, mischievous, cheeky, content, free, joyful, curiosity, interested, willingness, proud, strong, confident, acceptance, respect, importance, powerful, courageous, creative, care, peaceful, gratitude, trust, tenderness, safety, hope, openness, inspiration. I mean, that's just a huge difference. I'm sure that you can see and feel the nuance there. So what I noticed is that having more options gave me more of an opportunity to truly understand what I was feeling. You may feel serenity, but not really know why. I'm feeling peaceful right now, but I don't know why I'm feeling so peaceful. But if you can say that you feel happy because you feel accepted, that's very clear. That can demonstrate to you that you have this need to feel accepted, and that feeling accepted makes you feel good. And that is a really powerful piece of information to know about yourself. You can start to see that maybe sometimes you seek acceptance in the moment because it will make you feel happy in the moment over sticking to a long-term plan that may leave you feeling outcast for a bit, but would ultimately improve your situation in the long term. On the flip, you can identify people in your life who make you feel accepted for who you are versus making you feel accepted when you are pleasing them in some kind of way, or for basically making you feel unaccepted. Regardless of what you do, if you feel accepted around a certain type of person or experience, you can kind of dig in and figure out, why do I feel so accepted in this situation? What about this situation makes me feel accepted? This information will be invaluable to you as you get better at identifying your emotions, and you will undoubtedly begin to ask those types of questions and make those types of connections, and that will totally unlock you to be able to start healing if you have some things you need to heal from. I would really like to explore this in the future videos. So please, if you have any questions or suggestions in this area, kind of let me know in the comments. I want, like I said, I want this to be our community. So please, topics of interest, put them down below. If I feel qualified to speak on them, qualified loosely, but if I feel like I could speak on them or have something to add to the conversation is what I should say, then I will do a video. Back to Plutchik, okay? Because I did have a really cool moment on something that I've kind of been struggling with in my daily life. So I have someone in my life recently who I just seem to be constantly engaged with conflict. We're just button heads. And you know, it's getting to a point where I'm starting to feel really aggressive towards that person. Like, I just want to make myself bigger. I'm talking louder, like, and nothing seems to be working. And I'm just feeling more aggressive, and that person, I'm just losing my cool in a way that I'm not comfortable with. It's not who I want to be. This isn't how I want to communicate. What's going on here? But as I was struggling in one of those moments after talking with this person, I was doing my will work, and I went over to Robert Plutchik's will and identified anger and anticipation as what I was feeling. And then I looked at the combination of those, and it was actually aggressiveness. It was a really cool aha moment, that there was actually some logic, and that I wasn't alone in feeling aggressive in a situation where I'm kind of anticipating a certain outcome or a response from someone, but I'm also feeling very angry either at them or at the current situation, and kind of combining those things makes aggression. It was sort of mind blown for me that it was just that on the money. That was just really, really, I don't know, I was pretty impressed. I did not always feel that the Plutchik will always worked perfectly, but it was very useful, and it was a fun experiment for me to do. It worked a lot of the time, so I think it's a cool thing to get into. I feel like I learned a bit while using it, and I also think it's important to note that Robert Plutchik was kind of the first to be doing this kind of work. So I think that looking at his wheel is a bit like reading Freud, where we've really seen it so much that it was certainly groundbreaking at the time, but now it's kind of like learning your ABCs. And people have really been able to build kind of more complex ideas on top of the foundation that was provided by Plutchik and Freud. I mean, the foundation work that these guys did was pretty impressive. So I don't want to minimize any contributions here by saying his will isn't as good. It is a good will. There's benefits of these other wills. Another interesting list that I found was this one from the Center for Nonviolent Communication, and I really just thought it was cool and maybe a good place to start for someone who maybe would prefer to build their own will, or who even wants more options. This is actually not a will, it's a list. Did I say that? I like looking at it on occasion, but honestly I prefer the wheel format. It's just easier for me to find what I'm looking for more quickly. I mentioned making your own will, and I've seen quite a few people doing that lately. Initially, I liked the idea, but as I thought more about it, I just saw a tendency to kind of put emotions that you think you're going to feel, as opposed to a bigger variety, because sometimes what you feel, it might often surprise you. The other day, I felt exposed. And it was one I probably would have never picked out to put on a will, but as soon as I read it, like, that was the exact word. I mean, I even had a flash of an image of a live electric wire sparking out of a cut line. It was like so dramatic, it was raw, and I was feeling injured and naked and nowhere to hide to protect myself in that moment, and it was just really intense. But honestly, I mean, funny enough, the trigger I think was like incredibly mundane. I don't remember what it was, but it was not like a substantial trigger. I remember thinking like, wow, this is an emotion. But it didn't last that long. You know, it was kind of like this fleeting thing. In that moment, it was just so intense and hot, and exposed was like the absolute perfect word. It was one of those, I kind of felt it and I was like, yeah, this is it. And then it was kind of gone. But there are many more emotion wheels, charts, ideas. These are just the ones that I've personally spent some time with. So if you have a favorite, please let me know in the comments. Let us all know in the comments. And if I haven't already, I would be delighted to spend some time and check those out. There are a couple more that aren't necessarily wheel formats that I would kind of like to check out too. If you have, like I said, if you have any questions, suggestions, just need a place for your expression, leave it in the comments. The comments are open for all for right now. I do intend to keep it monitored for some level of respect and safety for all of us. Differing opinions are welcome, but they need to be stated with respect and also need to be responded to with respect. So yes, I will be deleting comments if I feel like they're out of bounds. So please try to be respectful. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. Another thing that I would love for you guys to do is if you have any stories, because I feel like I don't want to constantly be talking about myself. So if you have any stories, please share. Thanks so much for stopping by, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!